CSIS 1550 is filmed before a live studio audience.
First of all, I want to quickly make sure that we have not forgotten our roots, however, right? I know we know what this stands for, right? What's it stand for? Create, read, or retrieve, and update. And what's the last one? Delete. What is that all about? What is it? Yes, they're the only 4 things you can do in MySQL, right? That's all you can do. You can create stuff, read stuff, update stuff, and delete stuff. That's it. That's all you can do. All right? It's a lot, and a lot of different ways to do all this stuff. So briefly, we need to separate our thinking into doing this to the structure of things and doing this to the records, right? What falls in the category of structure? Now we can do all 4 of those things with structural things or record things, right? So what things would I be manipulating if I'm talking about the structure? Say again? Tables, columns, databases. That's the ones we've talked about so far, right? When it comes to records, it's basically we're just talking about the rows, right? That's pretty much it, okay? Remember, the structure is the house. The records are the people in the house, right? So now let's make sure we remember how to do this. How do I create a database? Let's make sure we can remember that briefly. So how do I create a database? So create database, and then give it a name, right? We'll call it junk. Okay? So create, say the thing you're going to do, say the thing you're doing it to, say its name, junk. Create a database, all right? And now how do I create a table? Yes, I have to use junk, right? And then how do I create a table? Say the thing you're going to do, say the thing you're doing it to, say its name, we'll call it junkie, is the name of the table. Okay, and then what?
Now you have to specify your fields.
Yep, so first field is going to be called ID, and it's an integer data type. It's an auto increment, and it's a primary key, and that's it. It's just going to have 1 field. The end. If I want to look at that table, I want to look at the table. Show tables is not quite where we're going. That's looking at a list of the tables.
Describe tables out to.
If I want to see more details, right? Describe table. Sorry, thank you. Describe junk. Junkie. Like so. All right. So let's take a look here. If I want to create a new field or column, what do I do? Alter. Say the thing you're going to do, say the thing you're doing it to, say its name. Alter table junkie, then what?
Add column.
Add column, yep.
Name.
Yeah, whatever, we're just going to call it first name or something like that. Right, and then we got to give it its data type, right? char 50 or whatever, yeah. The end. Now if I want to describe it again, now the 2 fields are there. So let's look at our list here. When it comes to tables, how do we create a table? What's the keyword? Create, okay? Creating a column, what's the keyword? Add. Creating a database, what's the keyword? Create. Good, okay. So that is create, pretty easy. Now, how about reading and retrieving tables? Like the table, not the records, but the table. Yeah, it's kind of debatable, but showing the tables, right? If I say show tables, that'll show me what I have, okay?
Or would describe table show that, or?
So that's where it gets tricky because
That shows the columns.
Right? So if I do describe, that's going to show me the columns in a particular table. Now let me show you something. Let's look at databases. How do I see the sort of read the databases? It's a keyword there. It is show, right? Show databases, or shoe databases, same thing. Show, I thought I wrote diabetes. Databases. Oh my gosh. Show, then it made me think of Wilford Brimley when he says diabetes.
Diabetes. Diabetes. Diabetes.
So show the databases, right? So show, describe, show. But here's the thing that I didn't tell you. Show is actually the one you use for columns too. you can actually, like we've said, show tables, show databases. I can also do show columns, but there's a catch.
Yeah, but what table
Yeah,
you
which
want?
table do you want to see them from? Because the database is like, what are you talking about? You got 80 tables. Which one do you want to see, right? So show columns from Junkie. That is exactly the same thing as describe. Yeah. So, but I wanted to point that out because I think what happened, show was probably the original way, and then they realized, oh, if I'm using show, I have to go the extra effort and add the table name. So later in the language, when it evolved, they came up with describe. That's probably what happened. That's usually how these things happen. Okay. All right. So good. We've got how this is creating, reading. How do we update a table? Alter. Yep. We just did that, right? Alter. We alter the table. How do we update a column? Change is one way. There's another way. Modify, yeah. If I want to modify this first name field right here to be a char 75, let's say, right? We do our traditional alter table junkie, and then we say modify column first name. And we want it to be a char 75, the end. And now it's a char 75. That's using the modify keyword to modify the column. All right, what if I want to rename it? That's where you do the change. So alter table, junkie, and then, sorry, change first name to just first char, just leave it at 75 or whatever, right? So now it's not called first name, it's just called first. Now if we look at it, it's called first, right? Okay, so change and modify, good. How do we update a database? It's kind of a quasi-trick question.
Update it how?
That's why it's kind of a quasi-trick question.
Update,
That's not updating it, that's deleting it.
update table and then set
That's
Update.
records.
records.
And it's also table records, not.
You could add a table, drop a table.
So you're on the right track, yeah. Adding tables, dropping tables is kind of, with the database, you just go for use, right? So now you're in it, and now everything you do is modifying that database, right? So that's why I said it's a quasi-trick question. Using the database means I'm in it, now I can have access to all the tables or records or whatever permissions I have, right? All right, great. Delete. How do I delete? Let's do this in a different order here, so we can actually do it in order here. How do we do this? How do I delete a column?
Do we delete? Or we drop?
Drop, right? So, but again, if I'm deleting a column, what am I modifying? The table. Just like if I do something with a table, I'm modifying the database, so I have to first say use database. Well, in this case, I've got to say alter the table, called junkie, and drop column first, right? Don't need to mention the data type because who cares about it because I'm deleting it, right? Okay, there we go. So now if I look, that's gone. Okay, so we use drop for this. All right, how do I delete a table? Drop, very good. Yeah, drop. So how do I do it? It's say the thing I'm gonna do. This whole time, everything we've been doing, say the thing you're gonna do, say the thing you're doing it to, say its name. So drop table, that's the thing I'm doing it to, called junkie, right? The end, there's no longer show columns from junkie, that's not a thing anymore, right? Because junkie's gone. All right, so that is drop. So now what? How do I get rid of a database? Also drop. Drop database junk, right? The end. If I show the databases, junk is no longer in there. All right, that's structure. Everything we just did is manipulating structure, right? That should be all review. It's something we should be very familiar with in our lives as database programmers. Now let's look at the records, right? And when we get to records, this whole say what you're going to do, say what you're doing it to, say its name, just goes out the window. It does not work for this. It's a different paradigm, right? So same 4 questions though. How do I create a record? Insert, right? I have a table that already exists, and I'm going to insert into it. So let's use the towel database here, and let's insert. Let's select star from item. And let's insert into here. So I can say insert into item, right? That's it. So insert into the table, whatever its name is, the fields you're going to insert into, followed by the values in the order that matches the fields. There we go. Now if I do a select star, there is BB8 right there. Okay. All right, so we use insert, or if you want to go insert into, right? All right, next up, how do I read? You guys better know this one.
Select.
Select, yeah. That's our life, right? Select star from item or from wherever, right? Okay, so select. All right, how do I update? Update. And we'll also throw in the set keyword, right? I'm putting it in brackets. I shouldn't do that because brackets usually means that it's optional, but it's not optional. But it's not update set. There's a space in there, so we'll go like with a pipe or something like that, right? So it means this is what it looks like. I want to change BB8 to something else. So I'm going to say update item, then set, right? And we're going to set description equal to cutest droid, whatever, I don't know. Where item num is equal to BB08, right? If I leave off the where clause, what happens?
They update it.
Every product becomes described as cutest droid, no good. All right, fabulous. So now if we look, you can see that it says cutest droid, and we used update and then the set keyword. All right. Last one, how do I delete a record?
Delete from,
Yep, delete from whatever the table is, which is item, where, again, if I don't put where, what happens? Goodbye, well, it'll just give me a new line. But if I had a semicolon there, then it would delete everything, right? Which is what I meant when I asked the question. Yeah, so delete, if I do that and I had a semicolon, I ran it, goodbye data, goodbye job security probably, right? Goodbye everything, okay? Where item num is equal to BB08. Goodbye BB08. You are no longer with us, as we can see. And we just used delete. You can go with delete from if you'd like. So let's take a look at moving on here a little bit. So here's what we're going to do. If I gave you an assignment right now, based on everything you've learned just from this class, and I said to you, I want you to make a copy of the customer table with all the data, all the records, all the fields, everything. What approach would you take for that? So create a table, right? Create table customer 2, and I'll go through like the process of creating a whole table, right? Which you did with like the Alexamara database, right? So then what else?
Well, once you create, you have to insert the records.
So now you have to go through an insert process, right? Where you get all the data out of the table somehow, get it to where you can type it into an insert statement, right? Valid way to do it, pain in the butt way to do it, but valid way to do it, right? There is a way to completely duplicate a table with just 2 lines of code. I'm going to show you that right now. Line 1, create table customer 2. Say the thing you're going to do, say the thing you're doing too, say its name. And rather than saying, you know, parenthesis, customer name and all this stuff, you just say like customer, and poof, I have a duplicate of that table. Just the structure, not the data, right? So if I say describe customer and describe customer 2, behold, identical, right? If, however, I say select star from customer and select star from customer 2, that's customer 2, the empty set, all right? So the second line, this will insert the records, but we need to back up a little bit and dive a little bit deeper into our insert statement, okay? All right, so this is a simple insert statement. Now we know a few things about how the insert statements work. Thing number 1, if I am inserting into the item table all of the fields, as we mentioned before. This is not needed, right? Okay. Well, I can also do something like this. All right, we know about this. Rather than saying values, you can actually use the select clause and just say that. That's a valid thing to select. I'll show you what happens if I do that just on the command line. I'm literally just selecting the things I typed. It's no different than saying select 8, right? We talked about that before.
Yes.
Select 8, 8 times 9, right? Well, I can say select Joe, and it'll just select Joe. I can say select Joe, comma, Bob, and it's going to literally just say Joe and Bob, right? So if that's the case, look at what's going on here. When I said select this, it just selected that. So if it returns that little data set, that line that's highlighted there returns this data set right here, why can't I just do this? You can totally do this, right? You can also do, let's go back to what we had a second ago. That's totally legitimate too, because I'm saying select BB08, which that's just a thing I made up, select cute droid, select 3, select Rob, select 3, select 99, and that's going to be the same number of fields here. So if I run this, and I look in the table, where the heck it is, right here, it added BB8. Okay? So instead of saying values, parenthesis, here are the values, I can just say select these from thin air. Or, how about this? Insert into customer 2, select star from customer. Why not? Totally legitimate.
Can you select the specifics?
You wouldn't have to, right?
Yes, so the question is, do I have to do select star? I don't have to. I could do something like, if I said insert into customer, customer num, comma, customer name, then all I would have to do is select just those 2 fields from here, like so. And that would also be a legitimate thing, right? So this would insert into customer 2, into the customer number and customer name field, all of the customers. Let's just run that so you can see what it does. Now if I do select star from customer 2, we're going to have a bunch of nulls, but all the names and numbers will be filled in. Null for everything else, but all the names and numbers are in there, no problem. All right, so let's delete all that from customer 2. And let's run the way I had it, which is with select everything. And because I'm not mentioning the fields, it just assumes I want all of the fields, right? So this is line 2 of your 2-line statement that will completely duplicate a table. Line 1 is right here, which we already typed. Create table, customer 2, like customer. Bam. Did that one already. Run this. That's line 2. And now we have select star from customer 2. And there's 1 and 2 right there. Perfect. Okay? Nice little shortcut, right? And that's very useful. I know why, because I've done it, but why do you guys think it's useful?
Because you're testing.
For testing?
You can manipulate the actual table all you want and not wreck the original.
Yeah, you can copy a table and then go in there and screw around with it. Change some values and do a whole bunch of stuff. And that's the main reason why you do it, which is usually in the case where you're doing some testing, right? So here's an example. I want to see what would happen if I gave everybody a 10% bump in their credit limit, all right? So first thing I'm going to do is I want to display the customer 2 table, because that's one we're going to mess around with. I want to display the customer 2 table, but I don't want to have to look at the address because it makes it hard to see on the screen there, right? So real quick, I can just say alter table customer 2 and drop column street, drop column city, drop column state, and drop column postal code. All right, here we go. If I run that, we just deleted those fields, and now I'll select star from customer 2. We get a nice clean display. Now let's screw around with it, right? I want to change the credit limit of everybody there to have a 10% bump, right? So how would I do that?
Update.
Update, because we're modifying the record, yep. Update customer 2. Now, why not do it on live customer? Why not?
On custom,
Yeah,
because if it doesn't work, you have to then alter it, or,
not alter it.
well, you have to change it back.
Yeah, yep. So number one, what if I screw up in my query and I put the wrong data in there and suddenly everybody's credit limit goes up by 100% or something like that, right? Number one. Number two, what if when I do it and I do it correctly, but I look at it, I'm like, holy crap, we just bumped up our total credit limit to like another $100,000. Maybe we ought to reconsider this, right? So it gives you a chance to play around. So we're going to set credit limits equal to what?
Are you increasing how much?
By 10%.
Credit limit by
I think you just said,
1.1?
yeah, multiply by one. That's a math problem, right? Not a database problem. Multiply that by 1.1. All right. Now, if I do that right now, bam, all the customers, all 12 of them, will get a credit bump. However, take a look at that list there. I see one person at least that I should not bump their credit up.
Or some more?
Cards and more. Yeah.
There you go.
Because they're in the hole, right? So I'm not going to give them more credit, no way. So maybe I want to look at only people whose balance is X% of their credit limit, right? Again, the math problem. So let's do a quick calculation here. Run the calculator here, and let's say that the balance for Toys Galore, the first one, 1210 divided by 7,500, that tells me that their balance is 16% of their credit limit. That's reasonable, right? They don't owe us a ton of money. They're not overspending. So maybe we could say everybody whose that calculation is less than 25%, something like that. I mean, I'm making up numbers here, right? All right, so we take this credit limit and we use the great and powerful clause, right? That clause is in the updates, it's in the deletes, it's in the selects, it's not in the insert, but it's in all the other three, because without it, you affect all of the data, and that's bad. So where balance divided by credit limits is less than 0.25, or we can do less than or equal to 0.25 or something like that. There, 9 records changed, not 12, right? From customer 2. And we can see that these guys did not get a bump, and these guys did not get a bump because they owe us 40% of their balance, and these guys, they did get a bump, and this one did not, okay? Very useful tool. Now, I want to go live. That's my new table. Forget about the fact that I deleted those fields. Let's pretend I didn't do that. But I want this to be the new table. I like the data. It looks good. Everybody's approved it. We're going to go live. What do I do?
Just take the same queries and.
Okay, you could run the update query, like
Update queries
literally
together.
copy and paste it so you don't screw it up, right?
Yeah.
You could do that. What else could you do? You can make a new table and move the data over, or you can take this and insert it and overwrite it, right? All kinds of dangerous things, right? But the bottom line is we can just rename a table. So if I just rename customer 2 to customer, done deal, right? But we got to rename customer to like customer old or something like that first. We don't have 2 tables the same name. So rename table customer to customer old. The end. Rename table customer 2 to customer. Done. Now it's live. Now, the beauty of this is if you screwed up, it takes you 2 seconds to fix that, to roll it back to that, right? Okay, how do we feel about all that? You good? All right, we've screwed around enough in here. I'm going to nuke my database. So the way our databases are structured, there is a property in your database file, like your settings file somewhere on your server, that automatically commits every query you write. You write, delete something or insert something or update something, and bam, it's committed, done deal, can't change it, right? But you can turn off that auto commit property. The way you do it, simple. Set auto commit equal to 0. Now, when I run a query, it doesn't actually run. It'll look like it ran, but until I manually commit the queries, it doesn't run. So for example, start in our rep table. Rep. Here are the records, right? I'm going to delete from rep. Oops, I deleted everything, all gone. But I didn't commit that query. So if I like exit out and then I go back in and let's go with select star from rep, everything's back. Now my auto commit's turned off again, or it's turned back on again, I should say. So now if I delete them, it's gone, but I can manually turn it off. Now you can go into the settings file if you want somewhere in there and leave it permanently off, but I don't necessarily recommend that, because what if I spend the last 2 hours writing a bunch of queries and then I close it and I forget to commit them, right? Which could happen, especially, I mean, in class, you see how often we write a query and I just assume it's committing. If I forgot to commit, everything would be gone. And then all my 2 hours worth of work is wasted. Now this only works for records. Doesn't work for structure. You drop a table, it's gone, okay? All right, so how do you commit? Well, delete from rep. Now if I want to, but I haven't committed yet, I can do this, roll back. Oh, crap. Yeah. Oh, man. See how easy it is to delete database? All right, I got to nuke my database. Yeah. Stand by. So this time, set auto commit equal to 0. You got to do that first, or else you are screwed. All right, now delete from rep. Okay. Now the rep table's gone. You can look at it. There's I know the table's there, but there's no data from rep. But if I hit rollback, because my auto commit's turned off, I got it all back, right? Now I want to delete it again, this time permanently, because I'm going to commit the query. Now that's it. I cannot get it back. Select star. It's gone. If I try to roll back, it rolls back to the last time I typed in commit, right? And if I do a select star, it's still gone. Now, from this point forward, my auto commit's still off. So I can still, from this moment on, if I screw up, as long as I haven't committed what I start from now until I log out, like I did a minute ago and screwed it all up. But as long as what I'm typing now, so let's go delete from item, right? It's all gone. But if I roll back, because it'll roll back to the last time I committed, everything's back, okay? These are handy little command line tricks to know, because in the real world, it's not like you're on the command line 24 hours a day or 8 hours a day when you're working, right? The command line is a very useful tool that, especially if you're on a Linux box, it doesn't have anything but a command line, then obviously that is where you live. But most of the time, you're going to be interacting with a tool like Workbench, which we'll look at later, or PHPMyAdmin, or some other graphical interface, and you're doing things through a sort of point-and-clicky environment. But there's plenty of times where you just need to get in there and do a quick thing or two, get on the command line. It's a lot faster and more efficient. And so that's a good time to maybe play around with the rollback and the commit, right? All right, questions about that? Yeah, you only roll back. Yeah, the question was, can you roll back to a specific commit? And as far as I know, you can only roll back to the most recent commit. Yeah. That'd be cool if you could do that. Now notice when I did screw up, I'm glad that happened. When I did screw up a minute ago, how did I fix it? I had a backup. Now, what's wrong with my backup file? It's old. I gave it to you guys at the beginning of the semester, right? Well, you know, if we were a real database, we'd have new customers and everything since then. So what does that mean? You got to do backups on a regular basis. There's a way to do that, okay? So it's not on the SQL command line, it's actually on your computer's command line. And we're on a Windows machine here, but on a Linux box, you'd go into the command line and you would do this. So in your champ folder, which is the server. Now, if you're on the actual server, like in the web, then it's a different path. But for us, it's champ, MySQL, bin. And inside of here, if we do a directory, you'll see this file right here called MySQL dump. If I run it, just call it, it'll tell me how to run the options, okay? We're going to do a couple different variations of this. So you can do MySQL dump, then you put your credentials in to log in, and you could say back up this one database, back up multiple databases, back up all databases. So let's do that one first. So here we go, MySQL dump. Then the login, U for user, root, all one word, no space, right? The username is root, but you're saying you root as one thing because it's user. P1550 or whatever your password is. Okay, that's the first step. Next up, you put the actual little flag here, right? And we want all databases. Okay? Then the last thing that you do is you say, where do I want this to go? If you have a C++ background, you might recognize that little operator, which means everything to the left, I want to send it to the place on the right. What's the place on the right? A file on my desktop that I'm going to invent right now. Desktop. And it's going to be called backup.sql. All right? Ready, set, run it. Take a minute, look on the desktop, and there's backup, and look inside. And that should look very familiar to you, because that is how I created your file that I gave you guys to install the database in the first place. Now, this has everything in here. This has all those tables, or all those databases, right? Not just the three that we use. So it's a big, humongous file. You can see as I scroll through, okay? So let's make it a little bit more useful. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Let's do this. MySQL dump, uroot, P1550 or whatever your password is, and we're going to do databases, and we'll just do rep, tal, and Solmaris. Not rep, what am I talking about? Tal, Solmaris, and Colonial. All right, and that's going to go to users jstone54 desktop backup.sql. It's going to overwrite that file. Click on here, edit it, and now this is exactly the file I gave you guys, right? A lot shorter. It's just those databases, okay? You can be a little bit more specific here, and I'll show you one example just so we get it on the recording. So this is when you want to do one database only, and you can mention specifically which fields you want, or which tables you want. So in this case, we're doing the tal, and then the rep and the customer. I run that, and it's fine, and if I looked in the file, it would just have those two tables backed up, right? But the real reason we want to do this, every time we do that, it overwrites, it's on my desktop. That's a horrible place to back it up, right? You want it on maybe a separate hard drive or something like that, or a server that's got a RAID configuration with a bunch of backups and everything. And you want to do it multiple times. You want to overwrite the previous version. So we're going to write a batch file, and I'm just going to give you the batch file. I'm just going to show it to you. So the batch file, we're just like we did before when we did our login batch file. We turn off the echo, we clear the screen, we go to the proper folder, and then we run the MySQL dump command right here where I'm saying all databases or whatever flags I want to use. And then we follow it by saying print it to this file. Now I'm putting on the desktop again, you would not do that. Then this orange stuff, I'm not even going to bother explaining it to you, but that's DOS batch file speak for put a timestamp. That's all it is, right? So if I run that right here, back up, It runs on the desktop. Now you can see it, and you can see the date and everything stuck on there. It's part of it. If I run it again, I'll get a different file because the timestamp will be 30 seconds later, right? There's a different one. So you have a folder that you back all these up to, and you run it every night or however often you need to. And on a Windows server, there's a thing called a task. On a Linux server, there's a thing called a cron. They're both the same thing. They're auto jobs. So I tell the cron or I tell the task, hey, every 12 hours, every 6 hours, every whatever, run that file. Run that batch file. Or on a Linux machine, it's called a bash file, B-A-S-H. Run that bash script, but run it at a certain time, and then we have our backups. Every now and then you go in there and you burn a disk and you send it, put it in the safe deposit box somewhere or whatever, right? All right, so hopefully that we got some good information. We sort of filled in a few gaps, nice little review. Plus you got some ideas on how to back things up. I'm not gonna test you on that stuff, but you need to know about it, you need to be aware of it, and you need to look for it when you're involved in databases in the real world, in case you come into a company that's not doing this stuff. You can smack them around and fix it, okay? Any questions?